All right. I'm here finally. And I have a huge echo in my headphones. I hope I sounded okay to you guys. Um Sorry I'm a bit late. I was getting set up. So, you all know why we're here. We yeah, we sovereign citizen shooting in Farmington, Utah. As I'm sure my regular viewers know, I'm an attorney here in Utah. I have not actually driven past this post office, but in one of the videos, the police chief is going to point out a funny intersection right before it. I've driven that many times, so it's it's very familiar. And as I said in my first video covering this, police just they need to have a no nonsense attitude towards sovereign citizens. It Giving them any leeway at all just leads to this. So with that, Static, it's good to see you. It's been a while. Of course, it's been a while since I've done a live stream, so there's that. Hello, baby. Hello, baby. Paul, Cyan, Steve. It's good to see you all. So I think the best way to do this, Van Bale, Balion, however you pronounce it, is a jerk. Um, he's got to get the scoop on everyone. So hello, Mike. So he posted the unedited body cam before I was able to. I went to record this last night, but my computer didn't want to cooperate, so I gave up and said, I'm going to do a live stream instead. So, with that said, though, I think the best place to start is the unedited body cam from Van Balen. And then I'm going to go to the local CBS affiliate. They uh, they posted the video of the news conference that the Farmington police chief held either yesterday or the day before. So I like that coverage. They slow it down. They show us still shots of the most important uh, events in the timeline. They show us all 5 body cams, so it'll get a little repetitive, but it'll give us a better, more complete picture. So I think that's the way to do it. And then after that, just because that's not enough, um, so we've covered some of his mother's court antics. I read the complaint and one of her affidavits from uh, her traffic stop. Well, I've been reading her second affidavit that she was an exhibit to her complaint. And that one, it's long, but it's funny. But I'm not going to do that one yet because we have the courtroom audio. We have the courtroom audio of presumably It's her assistance of counsel, which is presumably her son, Chase Allen, the one who was involved in the fatal incident, being kicked out of the courtroom. So that, yeah, that's basically what we have today. So with that, obviously, I feel I should give a trigger warning, quite literally. But if you're here, I think you know what you're here for. So just the warning's out there. But um, let's jump into it. Let me know if the audio is not working. Because, yeah, it's been a while since I've live streamed. Of course, it'll have the first 30 seconds or so without audio, so that's a good way to confuse me. But let's jump into it. And to orient you guys who maybe are familiar with Utah but not too familiar, if you've driven past right off of I-15, there's an amusement park. This is literally right next to it. You hear the audio now?
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm Officer Farmington Police. Reason for the stop today is there's no registration on your vehicle.
I don't need registration and I don't answer questions.
Alrighty. Davis, Fox 21. Can you have a couple more heading my way? Is this back window roll down?
Why do you need to know that?
I just want to make sure that you're the only one in the vehicle. So here's the deal, man. I'm stopping you because there's no registration on your vehicle, and I'm requesting your identification. Okay? You are detained at this time, and you are not free to leave.
Thank you.
Are you going to provide me your identification?
I don't answer questions.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no, that you're not going to provide me your identification. Is that the route we're going? Or would you like to provide your identification to me, and we can have a conversation, we can discuss the laws that you're breaking, and then we can go from there.
If you want my identification, you'll be under duress and you accept surety and trusteeship over it. Meaning you will be responsible for any debts that you're trying to incur here.
Okay, so I'm not trying to incur any debts or anything. I'm trying to investigate why your vehicle doesn't have any registration.
1692, you are trying to incur debt and legal action for something
Okay.
that's not allowed.
Okay.
And under
So,
18, section 245, traveling is a federally protected activity.
Okay.
In which
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And what I'm telling you is that you do not have an option to identify yourself.
I do.
You are lawfully required to identify yourself. So you can provide your identification to me, and we can have a conversation about the laws that you've broken, or you can fail to identify it to me, and we can go that route too. I'm perfectly okay with either way you want to go, but the direction that this encounter goes is 100% in your hands.
Sir, Utah Code, United States Code,
Okay.
is a corporate policy
Okay.
in which you have to be contracted and to be required to follow it. Unless you
Okay.
can provide me a contract with my wet ink signature on it saying that I'm required to follow it,
Okay.
then there's
So do you want to identify yourself to me, or do you want to go a different route? Wonderful. Do you have a driver license as well?
I am not giving you jurisdiction.
Okay.
Do not stop. Do not detain. You are not allowed to stop me.
Let me see that.
On your list,
I didn't see what you just tried to show me. Can you show that
This
to me
is
again?
similar to his mother's argument.
What's this?
This is a passport. It says, do not stare, do not detain. If you go on the first page,
Okay.
it says, the United States hereby requests all who may concern
Okay.
to permit the citizens
Here's what I'm telling you.
United States name herein.
Here's what I'm telling you.
Without delay or hindrance.
Okay.
You are
Will you hand that to me so I can read it? You want me to look at it through this tiny crack in your
I am
window?
not handing it to you.
You're not going to hand it to me?
If I hand this to you, you accept trusteeship and surety, and you're obligated.
Sure. I'll accept ship if you hand me the document so I can identify who you are, because you're required by state law.
I am not
Thank you
required
so
to
much,
identify
Mr.
myself.
Chase Allen.
That is not me. That is a piece of plastic paper.
So you have a fraudulent passport?
No.
Wonderful.
Is a piece of paper.
I do
That's what
like
I'm
this
hearing.
stop.
Okay, step out of the car for me.
No.
Sir, step out of the vehicle
No.
right now.
I am not required to.
Step
If
out
you
of this
try and
vehicle
force
right
me,
now.
Then we're going to have an issue where
Sir,
you're
step
gonna have
out of
to
the
come
car
to
right
me.
now.
Don't step out of the car. We're going to break the window and pull you out. Step out of the car.
Gun, 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 gun. Ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire.
Fox 20, we got shots fired. Shots fired.
Sarge, step back. Sarge, step back.
Sarge, step back. David, Fox 20, where's the post office? We have shots fired. We got suspect down. 10 us more. Show us your fucking hands.
Show us your hands. Don't move.
Fucking hands. Here, I'm going to go. Keep him on gun. Keep him on gun. Keep him on gun.
Okay, I'm coming up. Coming up. Close in here. Close in here.
Okay, I'm gonna stop that one right there. So I believe Utah is a stop and ID state. I don't actually deal with that very much, but frankly, that's irrelevant. If there's probable cause for a stop anyway, then identification is mandatory. So yeah. And I agree, Maxine. I thought up till the point of the shooting, not that I'm saying the shooting was bad, I'm just saying up till the point of the shooting, the cop was perfect. I've said it before, others have said it. When you're dealing with sovereign citizens, it's ask, tell, make. Of course, in between ask and tell, you get back up there. But you give them 3 chances, then they're out of the vehicle. Ask, tell, make. Which is exactly what he did. And the thing is, his family, that they're out giving interviews and saying, this was an execution by the police, that this was murder, this was awful. And yeah, it is awful. A kid died. But it wasn't murder. It wasn't an execution. It just wasn't. And I lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah. So the family is saying, as if this is a strike against the cop, they're saying he called for backup before he even pulled him over. He called for backup right as soon as he saw the plate. That would have been smart. That would have been smart. Because the second you see a sovereign citizen plate, you know that you're going to need backup. So just call it in right then and there. As it is, he called in backup as soon as he approached the vehicle and Mr. Allen started with his sovereign citizen nonsense. But so I was theorizing in my first video I did on this before we had much information. We just had a picture of the bullet holes in the car. I was theorizing, which license plate is it? Which sovereign citizen fictitious license plate is it? Well, we now know it's the one I used on the thumbnail for this video. It's the wrongly colored American flag that I mostly associate it with the Anna von Reitz free state or state nationals, basically. So cops just need to recognize that and get back up there immediately. So, and yes, Dave, the holster. So I tried to let the unedited version go without too much commentary, just so you could see how fast it happened. Um, the the press conference, like I said, they're going to stop it at the right point, zoom in, show us all the most pertinent information, and it's just going to be easier, I think, that way uh, to get a full grasp. But yeah, so the holster is on his right hip. It's a dark reddish brown leather. It's easy to sort of second guess when he's sitting in the car, but once they have him pulled out, you know that's what it is. Um, and that's it. It's West Memphis, Arkansas, but yeah, if of course it could be you know they were the worst of the worst true believers. They quite literally were willing to die because if I remember right, well, I can't remember if they unalived themselves in the Walmart parking lot or if the cops did it for them, but they had an AR-15, so it could be more backup just means more dead cops, which wouldn't be good either. But few other thoughts before we move to the next video. So this is a BMW, early 2010s. So I believe it is the same car his mother was pulled over in. The video of her traffic stop actually has been released. I've had technical difficulties getting it to work, so that's why I'm saving it for another video. But according to her affidavit, it was, I think, a 2014 BMW. So I'm assuming this is the same vehicle his mother was pulled over in. And I don't know who indoctrinated who. I'm assuming it's mother to son, but and and I say mother to son, but actually his dad, I'm very sure, is also a sovereign citizen because in the second affidavit that I'm going to cover in a different video, she does mention that it's harassment, it's RICO, even though it's never RICO, because her husband was pulled over the day before she was. So, you know, interpret that as you will, but I think it's a sign it's the entire family. So with that, they think he is. The family, boy, I don't know if you've seen the media that reporting on the family. They absolutely think he is, which, I mean, if it were my cousin or my son, which that would be weird since I would have been 14 years old and I don't have kids, but I'd certainly be unhappy. But at the same time, he's not a martyr. He was like Static said. He's an idiot. He fucked around, and this is the ultimate expression of finding out. Unfortunately, but I'm gonna pull up the second video. And this is the Farmington police chief. I don't know what he's doing with those glasses, but I won't focus on that. But yeah, so I haven't covered the minutia yet, but here's my legal analysis. So if in giving a legal analysis, I've got to look at this from two perspectives. First, I need to look at it from the perspective of a prosecutor, specifically Troy Rawlings, the Davis County District Attorney. And then the second is looking at it from the perspective of a civil rights lawyer or personal injury, wrongful death attorney, a plaintiff's attorney. So it's always Iraq. At 2x speed, the shooting's going to go really fast, but it'll be broken down much slower. And that's obnoxious, Linda. I made sure, usually if I set up a live stream, it's last second. I did it like 12 hours early just to give YouTube a chance to give notifications. But yeah, so back to the analysis. So from the perspective of a prosecutor, the cops, they're on administrative leave right now, which is standard procedure. I 100% guarantee they're going to be cleared. They're going to be back on duty. They will not be charged. Troy Rawlings has been the district attorney for a long time. I don't remember him ever prosecuting a cop for a bad shooting. If it was in Salt Lake County, Sim Gill, he has prosecuted cops for bad shootings. I don't think he's ever won, but Sim Gill wouldn't prosecute this. It just, I hate to call it a good shooting because every shooting is a tragedy, but it's not an illegal shooting. So, but then, like I said, we've got to look at it from the perspective of a wrongful death suit. And I don't see, it could go to trial. I have a feeling it could be dismissed on summary judgment. The county could give go away money, basically, but if it goes to trial, there's no way they win at trial. There's just no way. And the only question is, so, and this is something I think his family has brought up. I saw it in some of the comments on the videos. So there's some debate. When he was shot, his seatbelt was on. But the seatbelt buckle was right next to his holster. So some people are arguing, well, he wasn't reaching for his gun. He was reaching for his seatbelt to get out of the car. But there's two reasons I don't buy that. Number one, he said, number one, the gun doesn't end up out of the holster unless he's grabbing for the gun instead of the seatbelt. But number two is, I don't know if you guys heard it. Like I said, it went really fast, but it's going to be pointed out by the police chief. He said right before, if you pull me out, there's going to be problems. That alone wins the case for the county when they're sued. No juror is going to hear that and say, oh, well, he was reaching for a seatbelt. So, with that, let's jump into the next video. Welcome, Paul. If I'd actually, for those of you who don't know, Paul Carroll is a prosecutor in Ohio. If you email me, Paul, I'd love to have you jump up here and give your analysis, or you can just watch it. It's obviously entirely up to you. That's the standard sovereign citizen SOP. It just rules for thee, but not for me. And courts have no authority unless I want them. If I want the courts, then they have authority. So, but let's jump into the press conference.
All the law enforcement throughout the state that has offered their assistance in helping us continue our daily operations. This has been a feat for a small department to keep up with our normal course
We
of
don't
duties
need
through all
Shelley's
this.
analysis.
And I want to thank you all for your responsible reporting of this and your patience in letting us get the facts as we have them today out to you. And I also want to make a point to thank all the people that have assembled to show their support of the Allen family. They have been a great example of exercising their First Amendment rights. They've done it.
So I like that point from the chief. The Allens and their supporters have been I agree, Static. I actually do watch videos about him and obviously cover his lawsuits, but yeah, I don't give him views. I don't. He's just dumb. He's just dumb. Yeah, at some point I need to improve my internet. I'm actually plugged in today, so not relying on Wi-Fi helps, but I need to get I think a new modem. I've got Google Fiber, but it's an old modem from when we first got Google Fiber. Most people who rely on its trifold are in jail. Nope, it's not Utopia. It's Google Fiber from the start.
Peacefully. They've done it appropriately, and that is really appreciated. The Davis County Critical Incident Protocol Team is conducting this investigation. Our department has not interviewed involved officers in any official capacity. The only information we have is what you're going to see today on the video. All right. I want to remind you that this video footage
So he
is
just said
only one
Farmington
piece of
police
information in the incident.
are not conducting the
and
investigation.
only
He hasn't
information
talked to
available
the cops.
us at the moment. The video we're about to watch is a compilation of 5 body-worn cameras by the officers involved and a dash camera from the initial officer. It's important to understand that from the moment of any use of force began until the end, only a couple of seconds elapsed. Therefore, to gain a better understanding as to what has happened was a very tedious process in breaking down this video. Following the review of this compilation video, I'm going to take your questions. I would ask you that you hold your questions until that time. And at the conclusion of this press conference, I'm going to send out a link that will allow you to access a file to give you this compilation video along with the dash camera from the initial officer and the 5 body-worn cameras. Okay, let's get started. And spacebar on here, right? Okay, for the most part, I'm going to let this compilation video speak for itself. I'm going to orient you right now. This officer is eastbound on State Street, and by my best guess, it looks like, just knowing the city, it looks like he's around 300 West is his current location.
And that's, you see houses on the left side of the street. That's literally right behind those houses is Lagoon Amusement Park. So for those of you familiar or vaguely familiar with Northern Utah, that's kind of a big landmark. So it's literally 100 yards to the left. And that's the Wasatch Mountains in the background.
Let me point out one other thing. You're not going to hear sound immediately on this. And the reason for this is the minute a body camera or a dash camera is activated, it goes back 30 seconds in buffering. And during that 30 seconds buffering time, there is no audio. So as soon as you hear audio, then we will be out of that 30-second buffering period and you will hear all the audio. That was 200 West State he just went through.
He absolutely should have announced the gun, Linda. It's dumb not to.
Coming up on State and Main, right? I'm going to pause the video. We've superimposed the plate that is in front of him now that was only viewable until that car right here decided.
You can barely see it, but as I mentioned earlier, that plate is the thumbnail to this video. So
to turn south on Main Street and get in the turn lane. Up to that point, that plate, what I can see on the video, was not viewable to him.
exactly my question, Janice. So just to give you an idea how close to home this hits. So at a rough estimate, I'd say this is 25 miles from my house. But the chief is going to comment on this intersection and how he's actually staying on state by making this funny left turn. If he had continued right, that's Orchard Drive right there. You go 2 miles down that road, you're at my aunt's house, my mom's sister. You go another 2 miles, you're at my cousin's house. You go another 2 miles, you're at my uncle's house. So, like, and then my grandparents, before they died, between my aunt and cousin, they lived a quarter mile off of this road. So it just, I've driven on Orchard Drive hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. It's just, it's insane. I don't really think he's a jerk, Van Balen. He's just, he always gets the scoop. He can't leave one for the little guys.
So you understand the geographics of our city. It looks like to some of you, he's maybe turning off of State Street. It's a little bit of a weird area here. State Street he's continuing on State Street here, even though he's making a left-hand turn up the street he's on.
There's the post office on the left.
You'll see the post office. That is
21. We're pulling into the post office parking lot.
That is 145 East State Street.
He also needs to get the scoop.
And
But
now
I'm not
transitioning to his body camera. You're going to see him approach and tell the driver of this vehicle the reason for the stop.
The cops have not been identified by name. So Officer A, Officer B, Officer C. So, yeah. I don't think he did, Stacy. Like I said, I think this is his mother's car because in her affidavit from her lawsuit, she mentions a 2014 BMW, and I can't tell you for sure that this is a 2014. It is a BMW from about that time frame, so I'm guessing this is the mother's car. And as JT Jones says, it's not that valuable. It's a $10,000 car. And that's exactly it, Janice. If he had said from the get-go, I have a pistol at my hip, can I place it on the dash or place it on the roof of the car? He'd be alive. He'd be alive today.
The driver of the vehicle immediately asserts his right to not obey the laws of the land. At least the reason for this traffic stop. And at this point, you're going to hear Officer A call for backup. I want to point out that there's been a statement, there's been an allegation that backup was called for prior to this. That is absolutely untrue. And you will be able to see that here.
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm Officer Farmington Police. Reason for the stop today is there's no registration on your vehicle.
I don't need registration, I don't ask questions.
All right. Davis, Box 21. Can you have a couple more head my way?
Okay, so as I said, he asked for backup officers to
Is
come.
this back window roll down?
Why do you need to know that?
I just want to make sure that you're the one in the vehicle. So here's the deal, man. I'm stopping you because there's no registration on your vehicle, and I'm requesting your identification.
So I'd also like to point out the tint on this vehicle is, I mean, I haven't put a tint meter up to it, obviously, but this is too dark of tint in Utah. It's absolutely illegal. And, you know, people complain about draconian tint laws. I hate driving vehicles with overly tinted windows. I can't see. But this is one of the reasons why the tint laws exist for front windows. He has that window down 4 inches. Cop can't see his hip. If it were a lighter tint, he might have seen the holster. Kid might be alive today if he didn't have the illegal tint.
Okay? You are detained at this time, and you are not free to leave. Are you going to provide me your identification?
I don't ask questions.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no, that you're not going to provide me your identification. Is that the route we're going? Or would you like to provide your identification to me? We can have a conversation. We can discuss the laws that you're breaking, and then we can go from there.
If you want my identification, you'll be under duress and you accept surety and trusteeship over it.
So it's kind of hard to hear. He said, it'll be under duress and you'll have to accept surety and trusteeship over it, over his identification. That's a new one to me. It's obviously complete nonsense, but I mean, it's such nonsense. The problem with sovereign citizens is, you know, I'm a moderately intelligent lawyer. It's hard to provide an analysis on sovereign citizens because sometimes all you can say is wrong. And I think, Matt Lou, this is not going to teach them anything. It's going to give them a shovel and they're going to dig even deeper into their beliefs. That I think they're going to become even more of a true believer in the sovereign citizen rhetoric. And I just that's the only thing I really see happening. And funny enough, Alpha Fox Adam, I don't think he actually mentions the UCC. And if he does, it's not 1-308. At least I don't think.
Then you won't be responsible for any debts that you're trying to incur here.
Responsible for any debts you're trying to incur here. I mean, the only debt that would incur would be Mr. Allen's debt to pay the tickets, but I realize that was him invoking his fee schedule without calling it a fee schedule.
Okay, so I'm not trying to incur any debts or anything. I'm trying to investigate why your vehicle doesn't have any registration.
1692, you are trying to incur a debt.
So something I noticed, and this made well, I didn't do too much research here anyways, but he said 1692. 1692 what? Is it 18 USC 1692? Is it 42 USC 1692? Is it Utah Code? If you're going to be citing the wrong statutes, cite the entire statute. Make it easier on me.
And legal action for some
Okay.
is not allowed.
Okay.
And under
So,
17 section
here's-
45,
here's the-
traveling is a federally protected activity. which
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And what
And that one was 1945. That I think that's 42 USC 1945. Federally protected activity. That's that kind of goes along with the 1983 civil rights lawsuit. So that one does get cited sometimes. It's still wrong, but they cite it sometimes.
I'm telling you is that you do not have an option to identify yourself.
I do.
You are lawfully required to identify yourself. So you can provide your identification to me, and we can have a conversation about the laws that you've broken, or you can fail to identify to me, and we can pull that out to you. I'm perfectly okay with either way you want to go, but the direction that this encounter goes is 100% in your hands.
And I like the way he handled that. It's you can get a ticket, or we can pull you out of the car. Is basically what he said, and the choice is yours. But those are the only two choices.
Utah Code, the United States Code,
Okay.
is a corporate policy,
Okay.
which you have to be contracted in to be required to follow. Unless
Okay.
you provide me a contract with my wet ink signature on it saying that I'm required to follow it,
Okay.
then there is
So do you want-
kind of
Do you
obligation.
want to identify yourself to me, or do you want?
So he said federal code and Utah code, there's got to be a contract in order for me to be obligated to do anything, and it's got to be a wet ink signature on the contract, which is standard sovereign citizen fare. So I've always been of the opinion, if sovereign citizens want to make everything contractual, fine. But the state built the roads, and you contractually agreed to follow the state's rules for driving on the state's roads by driving on the state's roads. Basically, you look at it as a contract. It obviously it's a verbal contract, unwritten contract. But the state. So there's three main components for a valid contract: offer, acceptance, and consideration. Consideration being the value provided by the contract. So the offer is the state building the road. Acceptance is me driving on the road. Consideration, well, my consideration is the value I get from driving on the roads. The state's consideration is my gasoline tax, my vehicle registration fees. I mean, of course, it's not a contract. But if you want to make it a contract, I can make that argument with a straight face.
I want to go a different route.
So, before the chief jumps in, he provided a passport. I was curious reading his mother's lawsuit because she actually mentioned her passport and providing it at her traffic stop. I had my doubts about it being a valid US passport. It looks like, at least with him, it is. So he, yeah, he clearly doesn't have the conviction of his beliefs if he actually has a valid US passport issued by the US State's Department. I totally thought this would be one of those fake, either Anna von Reitz, Morris Temple, whatever. But the argument he's going to make is the passport says, please allow uh, this person to pass unimpeded, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember exactly what it says. He's going to cite it. But this isn't, please let them drive on your roads. This is, please let them pass through immigration. If I go to the UK with my US passport, it has the same language on it. It doesn't mean I can drive on the UK's roads. It means I can, subject to the UK allowing it, I can pass through immigration. I still have to be a licensed driver. Although, as I said in my last video, my valid Utah driver's license allows me to drive in the UK for a certain period of time. The a UK passport would say roughly the same thing, and here in Utah, you could drive on your UK driver's license for a certain period of time. Not because of what your passport says, but because the state of Utah allows foreign drivers for a certain period of time. He did, Maxine. That's a whole different. I mean, Kim Blandino's just, he's out there. He's just out there. That's the.
Right. So you're about to see the individual produce what we believe is a U.S. passport, and it identifies him as Chase Allen.
Wonderful. Do you have a driver license as well?
I'm not giving you jurisdiction.
Okay.
Do not stop. Do not detain. You are not allowed to stop me.
Let me see that.
Your list.
I didn't see what you just tried to show me. Can you show me?
So he actually, he said there, do not detain. You're not allowed to stop me. I'm on a list or something. Because some sovereign citizens believe there's a do not detain list, and that because they sent in their affidavits revoking their status or whatever nonsense, that they can't be pulled over. That doesn't exist. Some of we've mentioned Van Balen. Some of his recent videos feature sovereign citizens talking about their being on the do not detain list.
That to me again. What's this?
This is the passport. It says you're not scared, you're not detained. If you go on the first page,
Okay.
it says the United States Director requests all related concerns.
Okay. Here's what I'm telling you. Here's what I'm telling you. Okay.
And that's it says, please allow them to pass without delay or hindrance. That's through immigration. It doesn't say do not detain, and it doesn't apply in the US anyway for US citizens. But what that does, if you're detained, once again, if I'm arrested in England, I should have the right to consular assistance. In the US, you absolutely have the right to consular assistance if you're foreign. So if our fictitious English person is arrested here in Utah, they have the right to an attorney. They also have the right to consular assistance. Chase Allen does not.
Will you hand that to me so I can read it? You want me to look at it through this tiny crack in your window?
Handing it to you.
You're not going to hand it to me?
If I hand this to you, you accept trusteeship and surety, and you're obligated.
Sure, I'll accept trusteeship if you just hand me the document so I can identify who you are because you're required by state law.
I am not.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chase Allen.
That is not me. That is a piece of plastic paper.
So you have a fraudulent passport?
No.
Wonderful. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay, you're able to see in the background there that assisting officers have arrived.
All right, hang on just a second. All right, sorry about that. Had to do a quick administrative thing. And that's exactly right, Robin. You don't have to let anyone into the country. Like, I don't need a visa to enter the UK, but they still have the right to say, nah. Like, the last time I went, during law school, I went to, for spring break, I went to France and Belgium, and I flew on a buddy pass. My uncles work for Delta. I tried to get the direct flight from Charles de Gaulle to Salt Lake coming home. That broke my number one rule of travel: avoid Charles de Gaulle Airport. Worst airport in the world. I didn't get the flight. They make it such a hassle. I said, screw this. I'm flying home on Heathrow, from Heathrow. So I had never actually traveled on the Eurostar through the Channel in that direction. This was before Brexit. I had only ever traveled from London to Paris, not from Paris to London. So I didn't realize, even though the UK was in the EU, I didn't realize I'd have to go through immigration. So, and I had to go through immigration at Gare du Nord, at the train station in Paris. So I bought a last second train ticket, hugely expensive, but they let me in. Well, eventually. The problem is, when you are entering the country, they want two things. They want to know, where are you staying and when are you leaving? I didn't have an answer to either of those. I said, well, I assume I will be staying with my best friend who lives in Hampshire. But I don't have a confirmation because I sent him a message on Facebook with my 15 minutes of free Wi-Fi at the airport. I'm counting on the free Wi-Fi at St. Pancras Station in London to confirm. They said, "Well, what's his phone number? Call him." I didn't have his phone number with me. I left my UK phone in Utah because I wasn't planning to go to the UK that trip. They said, "Well, when are you leaving?" I said, "Hopefully tomorrow morning, but I have a expired ticket. Well, I have a ticket for a flight that left Charles de Gaulle half an hour ago that I'm going to change to a flight out of Heathrow." "So you don't have a ticket out of the country?" So after like half an hour of haggling, she finally let me in. I missed the train. I had to get on the next train. But they're under no obligation to let you in. Canada, if you have any criminal record, they're not letting you in. If you have a DUI, they're not letting you in. It doesn't matter what the US passport says. They're not letting you in. So it it, it just doesn't matter.
Okay, step out of the car for me. Sir, step out of the vehicle right now.
I am not required to.
What you're about to hear is Mr. Allen gives a cautionary statement, a warning statement that we're going to have an issue. I'll let you hear his exact words, but essentially that we're going to have, we'll want to pay close attention. You're going to see, if you haven't already noticed, he's filming this incident with a cell phone with his right hand, and he's going to transfer a cell phone with his right hand into his left hand.
Step out of this vehicle right now.
And we're going to have issues.
Step out of the car.
You'll notice
Right now. Step out of the car. We're going to break the window.
the placement of the coat at that point of the video did not reveal a holster.
So yeah, that basically he says we're going to have an issue if you keep this up. Chase Allen said we're going to have an issue. Knowing what I know, I take that as a threat. I take that as a threat of violence. And they mention he has his phone in his right hand. He moves it to his left hand, and then he reaches. If I have my phone in my right hand, I take my seatbelt off. I push the button, reaching across with my left hand. I move the phone to my left hand if I'm reaching for something. If I'm drawing a pistol, say. It just, the totality of the events lead me to believe that he was drawing his gun.
Step out.
Now, at this stage, you can clearly see the holster exposed as he's moved his coat back.
And you can see the holster. It's this reddish brown leather right here. If you can see my mouse inside the red circle.
All right, now we're going to get into where the officers are going to make a decision to physically remove him out of the car after multiple attempts to get him to cooperate without any use of force. Again, you're going to see his right hand on his right hip area.
So I was hoping that I sent an invitation to Ian Runkle to join me. He didn't see it until, well, after I had started the stream, and so there's still a chance he might jump on later. But for those of you who have seen Runkle of the Bailey, he's frequently on Law and Lumber. And one of the reasons I invited him, oh, speak of the devil, let me.
I figure there's a pretty good chance. I was actually just getting things fired up here.
All right. Welcome, Ian. We've never met. I'm Joe. I'm an attorney here in Utah where this shooting occurred. And I was just saying, as you popped onto my screen, that I specifically actually wanted you on this stream because you're a firearms expert. And I wanted you both basically to comment on gun safety from the perspective of the sovereign citizen who was shot, but also the cops. So
I mean, that's always a tough call because there's so many issues that get up there. But I saw a little bit of that where the guy was. I saw a little bit before I popped on where the guy was sort of reaching for his holster, and that's always a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's
well, and he didn't announce he had a gun either, which is dumb.
I mean, the better practice is, hey, I have a firearm. See my hands. My hands are well away from it. What do you want me to do with it? And I mean, sometimes the officer will say, don't touch it. Just keep your hands here, in which case your hands stay there. Or they'll say, we want that. And, you know,
put it on the
you
roof.
might want to. Yeah. And you gotta, I mean, especially when you watch videos of American police tend to be pretty touchy. No offense.
Well,
but
it's an armed populace too, though.
Yeah, and when you've got a gun there, you really want to make sure that the officers are not going to have a reason to react badly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all sorts of circumstances where people who were legally carrying firearms ended up getting killed because they did something that made the police nervous. And that might be more or less, you know, but especially like sovereign citizen files, like a sovereign, like if they already know that this guy is sort of on their SovCit radar, they're going to be nervous because a lot of these, and you don't know which sort of variety you're dealing with.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, sovereign citizens range from like guy who's kind of unpleasantly confused about his tax bill to guys who really have a lot of anger.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so you just got to be careful, right? That's part of
and
part of
this guy's
having
family is actually they're trying to allege that this guy was on the police radar because his mother is also a sovereign citizen. She was pulled over last April, I think, and she is currently suing this same police department over her traffic stop. So they're trying to
course.
allege, well, he was pulled over as retaliation, and the police actually, in this press conference that we're watching, they say, yeah, we had no idea who this guy was. We've never pulled him over. He wasn't on our radar. We don't know him.
Yeah, I didn't see the initial stop, but I mean, usually the police, if nothing else, the police can find a reason to pull you over.
And he, I don't have the license plate picture pulled up, but it's the thumbnail of this video. It's a pretty standard sovereign citizen license plate where it's a vertical
yes.
American flag with the colors wrong. I associate it with the Anna von Wright's American state national flavor of sovereign citizens.
So it's one of those I clearly don't have a license plate situations.
Yeah. So I'm actually
I mean,
I've
at
been
that point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Once you've got the obviously fake plate, I just kind of assume like that the police would know. I mean, an officer doesn't spot like that fake plate and go, "Hey, probably a sovsit," to my mind is not a great officer, right? Because that's just sort of sovereign citizen 101 is that, hey, they've got the fake license plate. There's certain styles that they like. Typically what they're not doing, is sometimes you'll see other people using fake plates, but they're like very carefully designed to look like a real plate. Usually the sovereign citizens are, usually their plates are something that's like, either they issue it in their own name or they don't have one at all. They just put up something that's like, as you mentioned, like an odd American flag or the like.
Or there's the private or not for commerce UCC 1-308.
Yes, all sorts of fun stuff on that because, like, yep, why do they do this? But they do.
So I'm actually curious. You being in Alberta, the recently retired Mr. Justice Rook wrote the book, quite literally, on sovereign citizens.
Yes.
Did you ever appear or argue in front of him?
I have, and I can tell you he is he's a good justice, but he's not necessarily fun to argue in front of because he's got zero tolerance for BS.
I can see that.
And so if you're making an argument and you make an error, he'll leap on it and he'll be, and sometimes that's fun when you're watching it happen to the other side, but it's not so much fun when it's happening to you. And just as a bit of background, I mean, sovereign citizens hadn't been such a big deal here in Canada until suddenly they were becoming more and more of a thing. It was getting to the point where you'd walk into court and you could reliably see them like once a week, twice a week kind of thing. So it was getting more and more of an issue. And I'm pretty sure that Chief Justice Rook, as he was at the time, sort of saw this and was like, you know what, I'm going to put an end to this because a lot of
spending the time.
Yeah, it's worth spending the time on this because a lot of judges were basically saying, we don't know what to do with these guys because we make legal arguments and like, what is the right approach? Should we treat them as kind of misguided souls who need some, assistance? And then how do you assist people who actively don't want your assistance? Because that's kind of how the sovsits roll is they don't really want your help. They, they don't want the help of the court. They want to do their own thing.
Yep.
And so he was basically like, nope, we're going to do the other thing. Like, this is an affront to the court and we're going to shut it down. I mean, it's a beautiful decision in the sense that he goes through everything in really exacting detail and basically says it's time to stop putting up with this. And the effect of it here in Alberta was that we saw them go from like a regular thing to a lot of them gave up because they found that their court appearances weren't going as well as they used to.
Maybe here in the U.S., the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, and frankly, most state Supreme Courts are, you don't have a right of appeal, that you don't have a right to have your appeal heard. The intermediate courts of appeal, you generally do, although frequently you just get a no as your answer. But the sovereign citizens, they frequently cite the Supreme Court. There's so many Supreme Court cases that are on our side, but I can't name any. We have so many victories, but I can't name any. So maybe it would be useful for the Supreme Court just to waste their time one of these days, actually, grant cert on one of their appeals. And even if it's a copy paste of Meade versus Meade, just say, hey, this is the case. This is the law.
I mean, it might be useful to just say, like, we actively say that Meade, Meades and Meades is the, is considered good law in the States. Hey, you can use this case every time these guys, every time these guys show up, because it's a whole thing that you get with these guys. They're the other thing is they're miserable to deal with.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've ever sort of had any legal involvement with them, but oh man, they can they could be pretty epic in terms of threats to sue, actual lawsuits, which are, I mean, they're time consuming, even if the actual lawsuit is just completely crazy.
Oh yeah. I was at a law firm that primarily did criminal defense, but also did plaintiff side employment law, which is, quite the combination.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a bit of an unusual mix, but
the only sovereign citizen I dealt with there was actually, he came in for a consultation on employment law. He was fired because he was driving a big truck for a company, and they used GPS Adlers, basically, is what it was called on King of the Hill 20 years ago. And he was speeding in the company truck, and they fired him. And he said, "This is a violation of the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment, and everything since Marbury versus Madison is invalid," and blah blah blah. I let him go on for an hour just because he actually was friendly to talk to, but I was fascinated talking to him, even though I eventually had to say, "Yeah, there's nothing I can do for you, buddy." But I was fascinated, so I let him have an hour of my time just because it was interesting.
Well, I had a guy, it was funny. He, initially ended up being a client just because he had criminal charges. And, I was assigned to help him through the legal aid process here is we have sort of a roster of lawyers. So they just assign the file to somebody who does like normal practice. And, this guy's a sovereign citizen. I'm going, oh crap, this is going to be terrible. And it was kind of a relief when actually I got the file, because I couldn't take it. I mean, it was just, I couldn't take it even if I wanted to, because one of the people involved was somebody I know. And so I had a conflict, and it was just like, okay, this is a relief, but like, I didn't drop the guy because he's a sovereign citizen. It was just that, but I ended up calling the guy and saying, "Hey, listen, here's why I can't take your file." And he was initially upset, but then when I sort of explained, like, you need somebody who's looking out for you and to never be looking over your shoulder and wondering, was my lawyer out like to help me? Or, and I was just like, you need this so that you have some confidence in the process. And by the end of it, he was like, yeah, no, that makes sense. And he's like, oh, so you're kind of doing me a favor here. I'm like, I really am. That is kind of the point of all this. And
that's actually super important because here in the US at least, one of the big problems that sovereign citizens have with public defenders is they say, well, you're paid by the state, so it's a conflict of interest because you're really representing the state.
I mean, who pays your bills has nothing to do with, where your where your interests are,
Hmm.
because and this is something that like parents often have an issue with, because parents are like, what do you mean you're not going to tell me what my kid said? It's like,
I'm the
well,
client, I pay.
yeah, I paid. And it's like, that's nice, you're not the client.
Hmm.
The kid's the client, and I represent the kid's interests even against yours. And they're like, well, what am I paying you for? Exactly that, right? You're paying me to keep your kid out of jail. And um, parents are often surprised when I'm like, you you can be called as a witness, right? Like,
Yeah.
against your kid. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, 100%. Like,
There's
they
no
can just
privilege there.
yep. And that can be a surprise to parents, because they're like, what do you mean I can't what do you mean there's no secrecy here? So yeah, that it's important to know. But yeah, that guy ended up suing probably about like 15 different people, and at the end of it, he didn't sue me. And he noted that he basically said the only the only person who treated me fairly in this was Mr. Runkle. So that was that was kind of a fun moment where I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm not getting sued over this, because
I mean, I imagine while you did treat him fairly, I imagine you're not the only one that did.
yeah, it's just I think I was just the only person who was able to provide a sort of coherent explanation of that.
Hmm.
So and that's important. People want to,
They want to
people
feel
want not
heard.
just, yeah, they don't just want at the end of the day to have their day in court, but they want to feel that they came out with a fair day in court, and that they had a proper hearing. I've had people walk out of court cases that they lost saying, well, at least I had a fair trial. And
Yeah.
that's a great thing for the system when that can happen. Doesn't always.
Yeah. So we went over this at the beginning of the stream. You may have noticed I switched videos. When you jumped on, we were looking at the press conference from the chief of police, where he broke it down and he was showing different body cam angles and slowing it down, showing stills. But I pulled up the unedited body cam just in real time. It's about 4 minutes. The whole video is 8 minutes 40 seconds, but it's about 4 minutes until the shooting. So I'd like you to watch that just
Absolutely.
straight through, and then we can discuss it and rewind the police chief video. Really, only a minute or two, I think, is all you're going to need.
Sounds good.
And discuss. so I'm gonna jump into the video now, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And as is standard practice with dash cams, the audio doesn't come on until about a minute in. And this is about 25 miles away from me, but it's like 2 miles from my mother's sister's house. And like literally right down the road, I have 10 family members.
That's always fun
How's it
when
going?
you see
Good. I'm
your
also
own sort of
friends with
stomping
police. Reason
grounds
for
in
the
these
stop today
things.
is there's no registration on your vehicle.
I don't need registration and I don't answer questions.
Alrighty.
I will
It
give
was
him points
functioning
for
one.
not
We have a
answering
couple more heading
questions.
my way.
Oh
Is this
yeah,
back window roll down?
that's great.
I didn't even know
It's
that.
the only thing he
I
seems
just
to be
want to
getting
make
right.
sure that you're the only one in the vehicle. So here's the deal, man. I'm stopping you because there's no registration on your vehicle, and I'm requesting your identification. Okay, you are detained at this time, and you are not free to leave.
I
Are
like
you
that
gonna
the cop
provide
says
me your
that.
identification?
Mhm.
You don't answer questions.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no, that you're not going to provide me your identification. Is that the route we're going? Or would you like to provide your identification to me, and we can have a conversation, we can discuss the laws that you're breaking, and then we can go from there.
If you want my identification, you'll be under duress and you accept surety and trusteeship over it. Meaning you will be responsible for any debts that you're trying to incur here.
Did he
Okay,
say
so I'm
you'll
not
be
trying
responsible
to
for any
incur
deaths or
or
debts?
anything.
Oh
Debt.
yes, debts, his usual angle.
And I think what he's going at is, sovereign citizens frequently provide a fee schedule
Yeah,
to
that whole
cops.
line of
$10,000 a minute for every minute you have me detained, and
yeah,
I'm
it's usually
assuming
a lot higher than that, like, millions of dollars a minute and that kind of thing sometimes.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
it varies.
I
So,
saw one that was weighted out in amounts of gold. That
oh
was
yeah,
interesting.
it's $20,000 of gold or silver per second, and
No, it was actually in weights that he wanted it. So it was like, per minute that I'm detained,
Mhm.
you owe me, like a half ounce of gold or something.
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, and that's it.
all
I've
right.
seen it both. I
That's
mean, I haven't been on YouTube myself very long, but I've been uh, really the channels that got me started watching Sovereign Citizens have already disappeared off YouTube. I've been at it so long.
fair enough.
So yeah.
I'm trying to investigate why your vehicle doesn't have any registration.
1692, you are trying to incur debt and legal action for something
Okay.
that is not allowed.
Okay.
And under
So,
Title 18, Section
here's-
245,
here's the-
traveling is a federally protected activity. in which
I understand what you're saying.
involved in.
I understand what you're saying, and what I'm telling you is that you do not have an option to identify yourself.
I do.
You are lawfully required to identify yourself. So you can provide your identification to me, and we can have a conversation about the laws that you've broken, or you can fail to identify it to me, and we can go that route too. I'm perfectly okay with either way you want to go, but the direction that this encounter goes is 100% in your hands.
Sir, Utah Code, United States Code,
Okay?
is a corporate policy
Okay.
in which you have to be contracted in to be required to follow it. Unless you
Okay.
can provide
Yeah, no, that's not a thing.
No.
On it saying that I'm required to follow it.
Okay?
I actually, before you got on, it was the second time we were going through this. It was when he said that on the press conference video. I said, you know what? I can argue with a straight face that there is a contract. The state building the roads is the offer. Me driving on the roads is acceptance. And the consideration is the value I get from driving on the roads, and the state from the gas tax I pay that maintains the roads.
The thing is, it's not even that, because it's just not a contractual relationship.
It's not. But if you want to make it a contractual relationship like sovereign citizens do, with a straight face, I can argue, here's how it would become a contract.
Yep, absolutely.
Except he does say right after this, it's got to have a wet ink signature, which is standard sovereign citizen.
Ah, lovely.
So do you want to identify yourself to me, or do you want to go a different route? Wonderful. Do you have a driver license as well?
I am not giving you jurisdiction.
Okay.
Do not stop. Do not detain. You are not allowed to stop me.
Let me see that.
On your list,
I didn't see what you just tried to show me. Can you show that to me again? What's this?
This is a passport. It says, do not stay up, do not detain. If you go on the
Wait,
first page,
how does he have a passport?
it says, United States.
That's
I don't know.
weird for a soft sit.
It is, and my last video was actually going over his mother's lawsuit, because the dash cam hadn't been released yet. So his, the sovereign citizens think affidavits have some sort of magical power, and although this was technically a sworn declaration because it wasn't notarized, so it wasn't an affidavit, but she mentioned her passport in it and how she tried the same thing in her traffic stop. And I didn't know, is it a valid US passport? Is it provided by the American state national wackos?
Oh yeah, that's I guess a possibility is that it could be some weird
The
you know
Moorish nation, practically everyone claims they're a consul or an emperor or something, although we don't tend to get many Moors here in Utah because they tend to be African American and
yeah,
they just don't exist here in Utah.
there's different sub flavors because yeah, a lot of them are based along sort of racial lines. We've got ones here that are sort of different different groups claiming different varieties of Sovset, although
Mhm.
it's the same flavor, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
same thing. It's just different varieties.
And I'd imagine there in Alberta, yours are kind of the Canadian variant of the Utah flavor of sovereign citizens, just
Uh,
sort of the Rocky Mountain
we
rugged
also
individualist.
we also get groups that are indigenous claiming different varieties of it. They might actually have a slightly better claim than your average bear,
Mhm.
but and we get all sorts of things, right? So even the it's just weird varieties that you get.
And
Um,
and here in Utah, I mean, Native American law is complicated. I kind of wish I went to law school at the University of Utah. They had a Native American law course, but I didn't take it. I kind of wish I had, you know. Um, but the native populations tend to be outside of the main population corridor. I mean, the vast majority of our population lives along the Wasatch Front, which is about 80 miles north to south and averages about 5 miles wide. It's 20 miles at its widest here in Salt Lake. So, other than that, it's mountains and deserts. And our main native populations are sort of Duchesne County. Do you know where Moab is?
vaguely.
So north of Moab, sort of Colorado border area, and then Four Corners region. So it's Navajo in the Four Corners, and then one of the Ute tribes, and then West Desert. Actually, we have. I think they're Paiutes. It's the Skull Valley band of Paiutes, I think. And so, but like you said, they actually do, at least on the reservation, have some arguments. It's Oklahoma where the natives really have an argument, since half the state is technically native land, but it is the population center, so you really do have to differentiate between, are you native or are you European? And
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that sometimes you'll get people claiming like Sovset allegiance in one that is based on like heritage and ethnicity, but they're the wrong heritage or
that's the
ethnicity.
Moors.
Yeah. Um,
So,
so that's always fun.
oh yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm with this group, and it's like, how? Like, first of all, it makes no sense, but second of all, how?
Well, the Moorish Empire settled the U.S., and so they're the real natives. And I mean, why
Yeah,
not
all of that.
rewrite history?
I guess it's we'll just sort of do our own thing, I guess. It's
Yep.
it's a weird world sometimes.
All right. Well, I'm gonna jump back to the video. It's gonna happen real quick here within about the next 45 seconds or a minute, or just real fast.
Sounds good.
Okay. Here's what I'm telling you. Here's what I'm telling you. Okay, will you hand that to me so I can read it? You want me to look at it through this tiny crack in your window? You're not going to hand it to me?
If I hand this to you, you accept trusteeship and surety, and you are obligated.
Sure, I'll accept trustingship if you just hand me the document so I can identify who you are, because you're required by state law. Thank you so much, Mr. Chase Allen.
That is not me. That is a piece of plastic paper.
So you have a fraudulent passport?
No.
Wonderful. That's what I'm hearing.
I do like
Okay,
this
step out of the
cop.
car for me.
No.
This cop's got a sense of humor.
Sir, step out of the vehicle
No.
right now.
I am not required to.
Step
If
out of
you
this
try and
vehicle
force
right
me,
now.
Then we're going to have an issue where
Sir,
you're
step
gonna have
out of the
to
car
come
right
to
now.
Don't step out of the car. We're gonna break the window and pull you out. Step out of the car.
Gun, 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 gun. Ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire.
Shots fired. We got shots fired. Shots fired.
Sarge, step back. Sarge, step back.
Sarge, step back.
I'll leave it playing till they pull him out of the
David,
car.
where's the police officer? We have shots fired. We got suspect down. 10 us more. Show us your fucking hands.
Show us your hands. Don't move.
Fucking hands. Here, I'm gonna go. Keep him on gun. Keep him on gun. Keep him on gun.
Okay, I'm coming up. Coming up. Close in here. Close in here.
I am kind of like, show us your hands, and they've shot the guy about like 12 times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you always assume.
Yeah, I'm looking at that guy going, he's not showing them anything.
No, but you assume if they have a gun, they can shoot you until it's proved they can't. So you might have noticed as they were pulling him out, the holster on his right hip.
Yeah.
The gun is on the floorboard in front of the driver's seat. So the question is, number one, the family is alleging, well, they're calling it an execution, and some people have said he was reaching for the seatbelt so he could exit the vehicle. But the police made a big deal of this. You notice the phone was in his right hand.
Yep.
He moved it to his left hand. And then he reached down with his right hand.
Yeah.
If my phone was in my right hand, I would have pushed the seatbelt button with my left hand. You're not going to cross.
I mean, you might transfer to, it's easier to do that motion. I could see that. But, I mean, what kind of holster is he using?
So I'm kind of the anti Ian, the reverse Ian. I dislike guns, which is why I wanted you on here so much, because
nope, fair enough.
I wanted your perspective. So I don't know, but
it looked like from that bit that you were watching before, it looked like it's sort of brown leather.
Yeah. Let's see if I can pause it at the right spot. So it's right there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like that's got any retention features on it. So I could see some, some possibility for that to fall out in a struggle or the like.
So you actually think it could have come out
potentially
without his hand on it, or
it's a possibility, certainly. I can't say for certain, but I mean, those aren't really great holsters for keeping a gun in place, which is not ideal, because I mean, ideally, like, the police won't use a holster like that.
Oh yeah.
Because the police are going to want multiple kinds of retention here.
Oh yeah.
Really, the only form of retention this thing's got is tension. So it's just, that it's stiff in there, and we don't know how stiff, right? Because that could be anywhere from, fairly snug in there to something that's kind of wobbly. Because I don't know, does this guy strike you as somebody who's super careful about making sure that he's got, the best possible setup?
No, I mean, a careful person would have said, "I have a gun."
Yeah, it's so I mean, there's, I think, real possibility that this guy could just be less careful than your
Mhm.
average bear.
And I actually pointed out before you came on, I haven't heard anything. I obviously haven't put a tint meter up to that. Those windows, I guarantee, have illegal tints, which,
Are
obviously
you
isn't an
saying he's a
executable
scofflaw?
offense. But one of the reasons why we have the tint laws is so that cops can see into the driver's seat. And the amount he had that window down, they couldn't see. So that's just, I only bring it up because it's another point of irresponsibility of, making the cops question, making them respond in the heat of the moment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, from what I'm seeing here, I think they're going to have a really tough time trying to make out, like, if these officers were charged, which it sounds like they're not.
Oh,
Um,
I mean,
I just,
I absolutely 100% guarantee they won't be charged, just based on the county they're in. But I mean, the only county in Utah that charges cops for like even questionable shootings is Salt Lake County. This is in Davis County, which is directly north of Salt Lake County, but it's
I'm
they
just,
don't prosecute cops.
I'm just kind of thinking, like, if I was hired to represent these officers, I think
Mhm.
it'd be a fairly easy sell.
Oh yeah, uh,
It's just like, well, sorry, this guy had a gun, was making a gesture that looks like reaching for the gun, even if they're wrong about that.
mhm.
It
You've
would
got
be
to
in,
take the totality of the circumstances, the
yep.
heat of, the as fast as it happened.
Well, and I would be calling up I'd be calling an expert into sovereign citizens and just saying, like, hey, listen, these guys have been known on occasion to, engage in violence against the police. This is a known issue.
Hmm.
Like, the police have been trained on this stuff. Um, so yeah, it's,
Have you seen the video of the it's it might be 20 years old now, but from West Memphis, Arkansas, where it was the police chief's son and the son's partner. They pulled over a white minivan and they were executed by the sovereign citizens with a AR-15 as soon as they got up to the vehicle. Did
yeah, it happens.
did you ever see that video?
I didn't see the video, but I mean, you get these guys who think that they're, you know, when they think that they're sort of justified and that they're, like, that everything that's happening to them is this major wrong.
Hmm.
You know, it's a recipe for potential violence, right? Because they've been told by whoever these sorts of Meads and Meads describes them as gurus.
Yeah,
They've been
I mean, we
told,
describe them as fake gurus.
yeah, but they've been, told that basically they're being cheated and lied to,
Hmm.
right? And so, how do you expect them to react?
Yeah, yeah, and so I bring that case up though because the chief, the dad, he retired shortly after, and he traveled the country lecturing to police departments about sovereign citizens. He's the expert I'd call if I'm defending these cops if they were charged.
Yep. And then you can be like, hey, listen, this happens, right? This
Mhm.
is a major concern for us. This is, and at that point, you're looking at. I think it's going to be hard to find a jury who's super keen on convicting in that circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, with my local knowledge, I mean, I don't think you convict these cops in Chicago. I don't think I don't think the family wins a civil suit in Chicago.
I don't think. Yeah, I
But
don't think
Davis
they win
County,
anything.
Utah, there's just no chance you get a jury that is sympathetic to them, civil or criminal.
Yeah, it's. And I mean, the other thing is that these guys threatening to sue you is not the most profound threat
Hmm.
because they're bad at it, like real bad at it, and so
Yeah, I mean, I the videos that get me the most views, because I am still a tiny channel, is that there's a guy. He's he'd argue he's not a sovereign citizen. He's basically he's a sovereign citizen, First Amendment auditor that is still he's a complete statist in the fact that he absolutely tries to use the power of the state against his enemies, but he still
lots
makes
of
the same sovereign citizen arguments. Well, I don't need a license to travel. The cops have no power over me. But he actually does sue other YouTubers who make fun of him.
huh, yeah, that
Pro
doesn't
se,
surprise me.
and I cover his legal filings because it's easy content and it's hilarious.
That might be entertaining just because I'm wondering how we'd try to sue a Canadian.
Well, he's been trying to sue an Irish guy, but he hasn't figured out how yet. I mean, he thinks he can sue him in California, but
I suspect California has some other notions about that.
I think Ireland has other notions about that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you've got a judgment that you can't enforce on anything anywhere.
Mhm.
It's just not like who's
I
going
mean,
to.
in theory, he could levy against his YouTube earnings since YouTube is California based, but in
Yeah, I mean,
theory.
yeah, I feel like this one is a tough sell overall.
Yep. Okay, so I switched videos again, back to the press conference, and so I like this one because, well, as you can see on the screen, the police department shows us what they're looking at. The transfer of the phone, the when they can see the holster finally, and he said that this was hard to hear in the video. He said right before they pulled him out of the vehicle, "We're going to have an issue if you pull me out." So
Yeah,
that's do you construe that as a threat, a potential threat?
certainly a potential threat.
so but I like this too because there's 5 cops on the scene at this time. They're not identified by name. They're Officer A, Officer B, Officer C. But they quickly go from body camera to body camera, which actually helps because, like I said, I want your opinion on the cops' gun safety in this, because I actually do have quite serious concerns. But like I said, I'm not an expert by any means. I think there's crossfire
Oh, I mean,
danger
that is
issues.
common. There have been some police shootings where it's like, oh yeah, this guy was shot like a dozen times, and it turns out that the what is it? Turns out that the bad guy fired none of those shots.
Hmm.
That's been known to happen.
And so,
So
So yeah, so this video will show that pretty quickly. I rewound basically just to the point where the shooting's about to start.
Step out of this vehicle right now. Step out of the car.
You'll notice that
The holster was obscured right there
placement
by
of
his
the
coat.
at that point
Yeah.
of the video did not reveal the holster.
So they're going to be making a big deal about the phone changing hands.
Hmm. I mean, I would if I were defending the
Now, at
cop.
this stage, you
That's
Oh,
where you see the
absolutely would.
holster the first time.
exposed as he's moved his coat back.
Now they say holster has flex movement. I don't know.
Hmm. And of course, he could have moved, like playing
All right, now
devil's
we're gonna get
advocate.
into
He
where,
could have moved the
the
coat
officers
to
are gonna make a
undo his
decision
seatbelt.
to
Yep.
physically remove him out of the car after multiple attempts to get him to cooperate without any use of force. And again, you're going to see his right hand on his right hip area.
And I actually, I'm a huge advocate for police using non-lethal if it's available, using tasers or pepper spray. I think in this
This is not a
situation,
taser
though,
situation or a
it's-
pepper spray situation.
I mean, even before they saw the holster right here, 15 seconds before they shot, it's not a taser situation because he's got a
It's
thick
not
coat
a
on.
it's not a taser situation at any point in this because it transitions directly from talking to shooting.
Mhm.
And I don't think that there was a point in there where taser made sense.
And frequently, though, you'll see cops have tasers out before it escalates. That they'd have had their tasers out a minute ago.
He's
But-
got a window between them. You're not going to
And
use a
the-
taser in that situation.
A thick winter coat as well. The only place you're getting is on his hands or his face, and I'm not betting my life on being able to hit a taser there.
Yeah, I would not. I wouldn't have pulled a taser
So-
as the officer.
And I just wanted to point that out.
Yep.
If you don't step out of the car, we're gonna break the window and pull you out. Step out of the clip.
So we've got 3 officers on the driver's side. And I think 2 on the passenger side. And that actually, I think, was the best shot of his hand.
If you don't step out of the car, we're gonna break the window and pull you out.
So that looks like his holster, not his seatbelt.
I mean, it's really hard to say. The problem is that those gestures look very similar.
Yeah, I base it on the angle of his wrist is more towards his body than towards the center tunnel of the car, basically. And so it's a very small difference of angle, but to me that's the holster.
I mean, the thing is that if I was the cop, I might, I think holster is entirely reasonable, and I certainly wouldn't bet my life on it being seatbelt.
Exactly. I would not bet my life that it's his seatbelt.
I mean, this is why if you've got a gun like that, you'd be saying, "Hey, I got a gun. Like, let's work this out so that I can get my seatbelt off without getting shot. How do you want me to do this, officer? What hand motions do you want me to make? I'll make them real slow. We're going to be real, real gentle about all of this."
Yep.
Because you don't want to get plugged over over that.
Exactly.
Out of the car.
All right, this is going to finish up.
So looking at that one, it actually looks like maybe my concerns. The one officer, so I was wrong. There were 4 officers on the driver's side, but one went around the back of the vehicle and was sort of at an angle off the rear corner of the vehicle. So he might not have been a crossfire problem, but he still might have been because
It's still pretty close. So
I realize he was trying to get an angle on Chase Allen, but
I mean, I'm glad nobody got shot, but there was real possibility that somebody could have.
mhm,
Um,
it just
and
gives me
unfortunately, you
concerns.
do see situations where there's crossfire between officers. It does
Yeah.
happen. So it's not like this is kind of an unknown or novel situation.
Mhm.
It's a thing.
You're going to see a few things here that are highlighted from still shots. And again, when you watch this footage raw, you're going to see how so much of this is not visible with the body camera. It has to be broke down into frame by frame in order to see some of the things we've already shown you and some things that you're about to see.
I guess that's the best view of the holster, even better.
Yeah, that looks like just a very simple leather holster.
I guess it's something you'd make. Well,
I
yours are
could.
nicer than that.
I could, but at the same time, like, they're not really my primary choice for a holster, right? Because
Mhm.
you don't know necessarily what that holster is going to do in a situation like this. Now, I mean, they're going to have a lot of questions about where, how this guy might have been jostled, how that might have,
Mhm.
dislodged things or not dislodged them. But I mean, that's ultimately that's a question for a jury ultimately. But
Mhm.
I don't
And
think they're going to get in. I don't think this guy walks out of there with, or not him, but I don't think his mom walks out of there with money.
oh no, and the police chief mentioned at the start of his press conference, even I have not spoken to any of the officers involved. The Farmington Police Department is not doing the investigation. The state crime lab is. So they're the ones looking at the mechanics of it, examining the holster, how the gun might have come out. Did it require his hand pulling it out? Could it have fallen, yanking him out of the vehicle? It's the state is
Yeah.
analyzing that.
Yeah. And I think that ultimately they're going to have a real tough sell if they're going to try to make that out. So far, it looks like a clean shoot. You might not
Mhm.
like the outcome,
Oh yeah,
but
I mean, it's
I
always a
just don't
tragedy.
see. Yeah, and I mean, these things can be tragic, but not prosecutable kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
and so there's the gun right very close to the seat in the footwell.
yeah, it's tough to say because I mean
So
that could have gotten there all sorts of ways,
mhm.
right?
And it looks like it's a pistol, you know, as opposed
Yeah,
to a revolver. Would do you, from your experience, do you think a revolver, just with its wider cylinder, do you think it would have stuck in the holster more firmly? Do you, or, like,
really depends on the holster, right? You can't make those kinds of generalizations just
okay,
because it really depends.
it's just
Um,
something I thought of just right now, and
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not a bad question. It's just you can't necessarily tell because the holster might be real tight or it might be real, sort of sloppy.
Hmm.
And without some additional information, it's just guessing.
Yep. All right.
Okay, at this point, we're gonna run the compilation video, and it's gonna start with Officer A, and run all the way through each officer.
This is where
who are
they cycle
identified by
through the
the
body
subsequent letters.
cameras,
And we'll
So this will
start
be
that
the
run.
police greatest hits cut.
basically.
Please, potential jurors, see this before any trial. I mean, I'm cynical, but
Hmm.
Sir, step out of the vehicle right now.
I am not required to.
Step out of this vehicle right now.
And we're going to have issues
Sir,
with
step out of the car right now.
Step out of the car. We're gonna break the window and pull you out. Step out of the car.
So it's this officer right here at the passenger door I worry the most about.
oh, he's right in the line of fire if he doesn't get out of there.
Okay, well he moved back to the driver's side.
Pull you out. Step out of the car.
But yeah, this one was sort of front passenger side.
I mean, they're lucky that nobody got tagged in that.
Yeah.
If you don't step out of the car, we're gonna break the window and pull you out. Step out of the car.
You've got, but two end up on the other side.
That's what I'm hearing. Okay, step out of the car for me. Sir, step out of the vehicle right now. Step out of this vehicle right
So
now.
this one with stripes is the only very experienced officer.
Pull you out. Step out of the car.
That guy moves right into the line of fire.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm speechless at that. It just seems so counterintuitive. I mean, I obviously haven't been to police academy or training. I'd assume they teach you not to do that.
I mean, the problem is whatever you teach people, that's gone as soon as somebody hits the trigger.
Mm-hmm. That's
Like-
true.
Like, good luck.
Adrenaline kind of overrides the brain.
Oh yeah, I mean, even just in a competition, right? As soon as the timer starts, all of your grand plans and training and all of this goes out the window unless you've got a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned, there's the officer with stripes. I don't know if I'm assuming he's a sergeant. It was 3 or 4 stripes, but I think he has 12 years experience. I think is what they mentioned. 3 of them have under 3 years of experience, and 1 is still in training. So
Hell of a first day.
yeah, I mean,
Like hell of a training round.
yeah, and so they're obviously all on paid leave right now. I mean, they're going to
Yep.
be cleared, but
They're going to be cleared. Hopefully, they're going to get some treatment because that's a
PTSD is
great.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, PTSD will be expected, even though I expect they're going to be cleared, and even though, quite frankly, should be cleared. But I expect that there's going to be some PTSD issues there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's see. I think this is the last angle, probably.
Sir, step out of the vehicle right now.
Step out of this vehicle right now. Sir, step out of the car right
If you don't step out of the car, we're gonna break the window and pull you out. Step out of the car.
now. Go.
So he really was right across from the passenger front window during that.
Yep, and I mean they shot the heck out of him.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, 5 officers mag dumping him. It's
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to measure all that, and it's hard to say whether at the end of the day it matters because one can be enough to.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, you need to neutralize him. You don't have to kill him, but
well, I mean, anytime you're shooting, it's lethal force, but
oh yeah,
there's degrees of. Yeah, it's just. I mean, the thing is, you see how fast that happens, right?
yeah.
It's hard to reassess and know is this guy, you know, is he defeated at this point or is he just angry? And when he's got a gun in his hand, the last thing you want is for him to be sitting there like, you know, he's got a shot in his liver and a shot in his gut and a shot in each of his lungs and he's going to die, but it's going to be 10 minutes from now.
Hmm. He still has arm movements, still has hand movement.
He can do a lot of damage in 10 minutes if he's not
Hmm.
sort of disabled.
And
So,
and that's the thing. From the moment his coat moved off the gun, so from the moment it first became visible until the shooting was over was about 20 seconds, if that.
yep.
So I just, like I said, I don't see, even without my local knowledge, Troy Rawlings, the Davis County District Attorney, there's no way he ever would, but I don't see any district attorney prosecuting these cops.
I would be surprised to see charges.
I mean,
And I'd be far more surprised if anybody ever, got money out of this.
mhm.
So,
I assume same analysis even in Alberta.
yep. I mean, it's hard to say what would happen, but I think it would be hard to see a conviction on that.
Mhm. And you guys aren't like England. All of your cops are armed.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't do the, hey, you're armed with, a stick of butter or whatever. It's,
Mhm. Of course, I lived in Durham in northern England for a year. I did my master's in finance up there, and every interaction I had with cops over there was sort of voluntary, stopping to chat with them. But they were always friendly. They do go through a different training, and they're not expecting an armed populace, so it is a different analysis over there. But all it
yeah, I
takes
mean,
is one lunatic.
yeah, it's tough. And I mean, part of it is that the training in the US is very much focused on like every single scenario you're going to encounter, you might die.
Hmm.
And I don't know that that's necessarily the way to go because if we, if that's sort of how we roll on things, then what you end up with is uh, police who are extremely, you
Jumpy.
know, jumpy, I guess is a good way to put it.
But
So,
I mean, I can, like, I'm very critical of police when that criticism is due. Yeah,
yeah.
this isn't one of those situations though, and I mean, I'd be jumpy too. I wouldn't be a good cop.
I mean, in this situation, I would absolutely be concerned.
Hmm.
Um, so there's lots of reasons why you might be real concerned about what's going on in this particular scenario.
Oh yeah. So I think that's pretty much the end of the, at least the end of the interesting part of the video. We've just got the
I'm guessing after that, it's
right
the
after
police
that.
saying, here's why we did it, and
Yeah, well, mostly
You know.
taking questions, and it's hard to hear the media's questions, and
yeah, no,
they're all
that's
pretty
fair.
dumb anyway. So, um,
So
and-
your media is similar to ours then.
well, yeah. I mean, you never see me in the chat because I tend to watch replays, but you know, I hear you and Rob on Friday Night Frenzy talking about the media. I have
Oh yeah.
an idea of your opinion of the media.
I mean, the thing is there's some really good journalists out there. There are some people, and in some of my videos, I try to, like some of them I'll be like, hey, I'm reading a story from this guy, and this is one of the people who does solid work consistently.
Call out the good
Um,
ones.
but then there's plenty of others who, you know, you just you see them and you can just tell that they're sort of consistently bad, and or you've got a news article and I'm like, well, I would love to tell you what's happening here, but there's not, the guy's listed a charge that is unknown to law.
Yeah. Well, or just as an example, I once again on replay, Rob's video from yesterday, the Tiger Woods video,
Yeah.
where the media reported one thing, and you look at the court filing, and it's like, well, this is the issue. But of course, it
Yeah,
was
I mean,
TMZ that.
there's just so many where you're like, really? This is how you're playing this? So yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's a little surprising to see what goes down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But so I was planning to. I've got the. So, like I said, his mother is a sovereign citizen. She's suing already over her traffic stop from last year. There's audio of probably him being kicked out of the court hearing for his mother. I was planning on doing that tonight, but as I usually do, I know you guys do it too.
oh
This
yeah,
went
things
longer
run
than I
long.
planned, so I think I'm going to save that for another video. You're obviously always welcome. And if you want to join for that, you can. If you don't,
Well, yeah,
that's fine too.
shoot me a link because it's interesting, and I mean, some of the sovereign citizen stuff is fun, and I mean, one of the weird things is the times when they actually win one, and it's always by accident, but that's always fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually a defect in the charging instrument, or the cops don't show up, and that's why I preach. Prosecutors. I don't have this opinion of everything. I'd be happy to be a prosecutor. I've primarily done defense. I think prosecutors need discretion. They need to show mercy. A good prosecutor doesn't go for the kill, except with sovereign citizens. You've got to send the message that this doesn't work. This isn't tolerated. You've got to prosecute every time. The cops need to show up every time.
Some of these guys are just, there's such a range, right? There's a lot of people who are hurting because a lot of the time the path to becoming a sovereign citizen is they're experiencing some sort of calamity in their life.
Oh, yeah.
And, Rook talks about this. Like, the people they prey on are people who are in divorces or who are facing these giant tax bills and that kind of thing.
Lost
and
their driver's license.
Yep. And then there's somebody there to be like, I can solve all your problems. The solution is magically laws don't apply to you except the ones you like.
And normally I have compassion. I feel for them at the outset, but gotta demonstrate this doesn't work ever.
I can see showing mercy to the guys early on
Mhm.
who are like, and I mean, I've actually gotten some prosecutors in my area to, like, I had a guy who was a complete jackass to the cops. He was, you know, railing at them with the sovereign citizen stuff. He fought with the police officers, like, you know, got into a tussle with them. And we were able to talk. And basically, a lot of my management on that file was talking to the client and being like, let's explain how this is BS.
Mhm.
And eventually he came around, and I was able to like go to the prosecutor and say, listen, I've talked him out of this, right? He's prepared to write an apology letter to the police. He's prepared to, whatever else. And I eventually got the prosecutors to like knock his charges way down. And in fact, the police were like, you know what? And the police usually want to go full bore on everybody, right?
Mhm.
But, we sent off this apology letter to the cops, and the cop was like, you know what? I'm fine with cutting this guy a break. That, like, somebody who's early on in the thing, and can be sort of walked back, every reason to, to give the guy a break.
Mhm.
But some of the ones I would love to see them go after in a bigger way are the guys who, the
gurus.
the gurus, the guys who, spread this stuff and so forth. And I mean, in some cases, some of these guys make big money doing it.
Oh yeah.
They'll they have, a following of people who send them, in some cases, tremendous amounts of
Mhm.
money.
And most of them aren't true believers themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, is you get a lot of these gurus, and some of the big gurus, like when they get sued, they immediately lawyer up and like run through the standard judicial process. And it's
Mhm.
like, oh, now we can see, when the rubber hits the road, how much you believe in your stuff, which is zero.
And I actually think so. The best intervention is actually your buddy Law Talk with Mike.
Yeah.
Have so one of the judges he frequently covers is Cedric Simpson there in Michigan.
Yeah.
And have you seen any of the Janelle saga?
I haven't. I
Janelle.
don't typically have time to watch a lot of stuff.
Mhm. And that's why, like, I tend to mostly get you on Friday Night Frenzy just because there aren't enough hours in the day.
It's crazy, right? It's just like, when do you,
Mhm.
especially, if you've got a legal practice and do YouTube videos, good luck.
But so Mike, though, covers Janelle has some tickets there in Michigan for driving without a license. She's trying to get her license, but she keeps failing the test because she can't parallel park. This has been going on for almost a year. Judge Simpson, instead of saying, you know what, I'm done, pay the ticket, pay the fine, your license is going to stay suspended. He just, every time she fails, he sets it out another 6 weeks and says, go practice, but don't do it around my truck.
I mean, good for
She
him.
comes back and they laugh as if they're old friends and, have a good time, but she keeps failing. But if he said, you know what, you've run through all your chances, she'd be prime for recruiting.
Yeah,
But
it's,
Judge
the
Simpson
system's
is doing his
unfair.
intervention right here, right now.
Yep, we will be patient with you. A lot of people find the legal system just completely impossible to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you get somebody who, a lot of people can't afford a lawyer. And so they get charged with something and they're trying to figure out the law themselves online.
Mm-hmm.
And who's really seductive at that point is these gurus who are like, well, I know how you can win everything. And meanwhile, like, the people actually teaching them legal issue, like actual law, might be saying your case is a loser, right? And
But
you're
you
going to
don't
go
want
to
to hear
jail
that.
for. Yeah, they don't want to hear that, so they're going to go with the person who says, "Here's how you win." And the problem is that person is lying to you.
Hmm.
I liken it to a game of 3-card Monte, because where you got somebody running that scam. Because one thing that those scammers will really commonly do is have somebody in the crowd who will say, "I marked a card," and they're trying to go get you to bet big, and then as soon as you bet big, that marked card is gone,
Hmm. Or
right?
they
Or
have
they
another marked card.
yeah, they'll swap it in, and at that point you're like, what happened? How'd I lose? Well, it's because the guy who was teaching you how you could absolutely win this was never on your side.
Mhm.
It's so yeah.
Yeah. So, but sounds
Oh,
like though my family's got dinner on the table.
fair
My
enough.
stomach's rumbling.
I've got some stuff here that I've been trying to resist snacking on with limited success. So I will let you go.
Well,
Uh,
thank you so much for joining me.
it's wonderful to meet you.
I
So
mean, I hope I hit it well. I was, being a bit of a fanboy because, like I said, I've been watching you for a while now,
well,
and
thank you.
so
It's
I'm just, I'm honored that you're willing to slum it here on my tiny channel, and
come on. It's the thing is every channel is tiny until until it takes off. That's just how things go.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I was I was like, now wait, I was in a meeting up until just a little bit ago, but
Hmm.
yeah, no, I was it's like, yeah, let's pop on because it's uh it's good, and I know that I got sort of part of my what is it part of sort of growing my channel was appearing with other people as well. So
Hmm.
yeah,
And
all
so,
right.
I mean, it's presumptuous of me maybe, but I'd always be happy to return the favor, if you need.
I will sometime when I'm trying to get a sort of weekly show together, and sometime once I've got that, I'll toss you an invite here because it's good to sort of have more voices.
Hmm. And so,
But
but yeah, so just thank you so much for joining me. I've kind of neglected the chat a little bit just because, I get engrossed in conversations. Um, but chat, if you haven't, I'm sure you already have, go subscribe. Uh, Runkle of the Bailey is his channel name. He's great. I
well,
mean, I kind of
thank
just
you.
jumped in, didn't let you introduce yourself, but
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer, but I talk about all sorts of things. And this is yeah, I'm just gonna also make sure people know to find this video.
all right. Well, thank you very much for that.
All right, I will let you go and have a good evening.
All right, you too. And I'm going to jump off too, go eat my dinner. So thank you to everyone in the chat that joined. I will, like I said, I planned to do the courtroom audio. I talk too much. I invited Ian, who talks a lot too. So we'll get to that at another time. And yeah, with that, thanks for joining. Do all the YouTubey things, like, share, subscribe. Go subscribe to Ian's channel. And I will see you again soon. Bye bye.